Welcome to Midlife Catalyst, a place where ordinary people share extraordinary stories. Today's guest shares my love and passion for OU athletics. You might be thinking that you have no interest in yelling Boomer Sooner. I do think she has a wonderful story to share about how she is aligning her purpose and her passion to show up in places and spaces that have not historically been where women show up. That is in the realm of talking about sports. I could talk about sports all day, but that is not what I'm longing to do. What I'm longing to do is inspire people to do what brings you joy and fulfillment and to live an authentic life. Today's guest truly shows up as her authentic self and hopes by starting her podcast that she can build a community where women who have similar interests around sports can come together, communicate, and find a place they can belong. I hope you enjoy today's episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. Larissa Holquin is Sooner born and Sooner bred, Ardmore. She graduated from 2003, better known as the Glory Days. Grew up listening to Bob Berry on the radio, calling OU sports. Her love for sports has only grown over the years and has allowed her to have many memories traveling to games around the country. Now this passion has led to her starting a podcast, Sooner Girl Sports Pod, where she is looking forward to connecting with others, especially women who share the same passion for all things Sooner sports, which I live and breathe. You're talking all my language here. I'm so glad you're doing this podcast. So let's back up. We are both from Ardmore, which is a small town in southern Oklahoma, halfway between Oklahoma City and Dallas. I'm a bit older, so we didn't know each other growing up, but we have many mutual friends. And we were both at OU. I graduated in December of 98, and Bob Stoops was hired the next day.
Yep.
So unlike you, I lived in the very dark days, although I grew up, of course, in the Barry Switzer Boz era of greatness. And then when we were at OU, you could go to the games for free and leave. It was a whole different world back then.
I grew up watching as well. I don't remember really the Barry Switzer days because I was too young. But Gary Gibbs was who I remember.
How dumb were we to run off Gary Gibbs?
It was rough.
In at just the right time in Norman. And then things exploded. To see how the stadium changed. People now don't understand in 2000 what it looked like. I get very nostalgic. For a long time, we had a tailgate on the south end.
Yeah.
The old O'Connell's was down on the south end.
Oh, my God.
Getting beer out of horse troughs, and you could run over
You could leave at halftime.
You could. Yeah. Man, has life changed, and it makes me feel really old to be sitting around talking about these things. But
I agree.
They were great times.
Did you watch much softball back in your day?
Didn't. And softball was not big growing up. I wish it was because I would have loved to have played softball. I love it. I obviously remember the 2000 national championship. And from then on, there's been no looking back of how great softball is.
Absolutely.
And across the country, Patty Gesso, I don't care how much credit she gets. She doesn't get enough credit for changing the face of college softball.
Exactly. Not just OU. Yeah, I can remember when they played at Reeves Park between like the City League games. They literally shared a field with the city of Norman and had to play around these amateurs. I went to the opening game at Love's Field last year because couldn't miss
Which
that.
was long overdue. And I'm still going to say this.
Overdue. Yes.
That they were playing in a crappy stadium, putting out
way too long.
The highest quality teams for way too long. There are way better softball fields across this country of teams that don't have one national championship.
I know. I agree. And Marita Hines, it was great at the time, but they quickly outgrew it. It took 11 years to get Love's Field, which I know money's a thing, but It's incredible. It's an incredible facility. I'm very happy for the girls and Coach Gasso and the program, but it's just crazy to think back in our college days, they literally played on a city league
Yeah.
field.
Softball is really what we have to talk about because other sports have been so flipping disappointing right now. I know you went to the basketball game.
It's
Talk
disappointing.
about stadiums that need help. It's a point of
It
conflict
is.
in Norman. It has been for too long to where you're like, just do something. You all have argued for too long and now you're so freaking far behind. You're never going to get caught up.
I agree.
Obviously, my dad was a basketball coach. I can talk about OU basketball all day long. I grew up on Billy Ball, and we have not found or replicated that fan following since those days. It's sad because we've had Blake Griffin, we've had Trey Young, and even with local hometown guys, we still haven't got that magic. I don't know what it's going to take, but they need to take a long, hard look because they're not competitive and they're not competitive in the SEC.
And
for sure.
I really thought that Porter Moser was a good hire at the time. I'm not dogging him. We saw Porter coach in the Final Four in 2018 down in San Antonio. We were there. And when we hired him a couple years later, I thought, man, this is fantastic. It's been lackluster.
NIL has changed a lot of that.
Pros and cons.
I love college basketball. It's my favorite sport. I love March Madness. There's nothing better.
Nothing like it.
But it's really made it hard because you don't have the loyalty. I don't blame them. I do not blame college athletes at all. Follow the money. Get it while you can. I go back to the OU Kansas battles. Kansas would have players you swore were there for 8 years, like Frank Mason and Perry Ellis. They probably felt the same way about Buddy Hield. But there was at least this mutual respect for these players who grew and developed and had loyalty to the university. Now you don't have that.
We see that in football as well. It's hard to build a team. You don't know what you're going to have next season. You don't know who's staying. I tell you what's really hard is watching these players, football and basketball, who used to be at OU and they've transferred out and they're like balling out.
I'm going to put it on air. I take back everything I said about Bob Stoops. We should have kept him forever and paid whatever he wanted.
Oh, I know.
Much like people felt about Barry. I think the ideal coaching situation for OU football right now would be Bob Stoops to come back as head coach. Lincoln Riley is our offensive coordinator. Brent Venables is our defensive coordinator.
Oh, man.
And we are in good shape. It will never happen.
It will never happen.
But our last two head coaches are great coordinators. They're not head coaches.
I agree.
And I don't care how much loyalty or I like one or I hate the other.
Yeah.
They've both proven they have no ability to manage a game.
I agree. And I hate to say that because I have loved Brent Venables for 25 years. And when we hired him as head coach, I was ecstatic. It takes some time.
It does.
But it's hard. It's like what I was saying about Porter Moser. Sadly, I honestly feel the same way about both of those coaches and our given situation. I like Brent Venables as a person. I've met the guy. I think he's a great guy. The culture and behind the scenes kind of stuff that he really wants to bring attention to and to get the guys involved with and like teach them. I think it's great. I think building that culture is important and teaching them things besides just the X's and O's and football on the field. But also, if you're not performing on the field, then we still have a problem here. It's hard because he is a really good person. And then also, we have thrown in the mix his personal life with his wife battling breast cancer. And who wants to dog on a man whose wife is battling cancer?
Hard, but at the end of the day, you're at the University of Oklahoma and
job's a job and there's standards. And
he's
on the hot seat for sure. Who's going to stay when they don't even know who their coaches are and what that culture is going to be like? It's just a cluster. That's scary to think about. If there's not drastic changes, well, basketball included, but mainly football, like this next season, somebody got to turn the ship around. It's really full. I don't know basketball as well as I do football and softball. Those are my two that I know much better. I love it just the same. I don't know what the answer is, but it's hard with the continuity of the team because there are a lot of talented players on that team. And you're like, the talent's on the roster. Why is
Right.
the production not here? What's the disconnect? And so finding that and fixing it.
Football, there was a lot of talent. You had talked about strength and conditioning. They're still very undersized for the
They
SEC.
are.
You could see that in the first half against Tennessee. Like,
I
we're going to get
know.
half our
That was rough.
team injured because they're not.
We basically did.
And we did. And because they were not big enough.
Yeah.
And that's one piece.
Sorry, I
The
didn't mean to
other
interrupt.
piece, but still, it was a team that could have won 7 games, but for not clock management and game management and
The clock management was terrible, even at the
terrible.
bowl game. Why are we still having these issues? And that goes back on Brent. There's no one else to answer for that.
Year 1, we excused it. 2 years later.
Not 3 seasons in. I listened to Gabe and Teddy, and they talk on their podcast about bulking up the guys and making them bigger. So, I mean, what do I know? But if they're saying that it needs to be done still, then I'm like, okay, that's still a thing. So this year proves to provide a lot of answers. It's more scary than exciting.
Yeah. Women's sports are actually the highlight at OU right now, not just softball. Women's basketball is doing great. Gymnastics, of course, is great. Volleyball finally got back in the NCAA tournament.
They were incredible,
Yeah, we have some good momentum women's wise. I know you go football, basketball. What all do you attend?
Softball, of course, women's basketball. I actually went to 2 soccer games this past year. I don't know anything about soccer. I'll literally watch OU play anything. I don't care.
Right. Say about me and my mom. We had season tickets. Football, women's and men's basketball. And he's like, oh, if OU had a tiddlywinks match, they would go. Like, it does not. Yeah, you're right there. It doesn't matter.
My nieces actually in gymnastics, we've been taking her to meets since she was little bitty. We've been going to women's gymnastics meets for the last 15 years. I've never been to a tennis match. I love tennis. I don't know why I've never gone, and they're free.
You need to go. I know they actually have great facilities. They built a great venue.
I've had my own football season tickets for, this will be year 14 coming up. My dad had them when I growing up, and that's when I started going with him when I was 8 years old. That's where that love came from. He sadly had to get rid of his tickets. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he had some health problems in the mid-90s, and so he let those tickets go. And that was one of those times when you let the tickets go, but you thought you could get them back. That was not the case about, 7, 8 years later. But he passed away in 2004, and so he wasn't ever able to make it back to another football game. But I was just a teenager when he let him go. It's just, life does what it does. And so I went as a student, and then I got on the wait list for my own season tickets when I graduated. Men's and women's basketball, I always attend regularly. I think soccer would be one that kind of becomes a regular occurrence for me. We're actually doing women's gymnastics Friday night, men's gymnastics, and men's basketball on Saturday. So it's just a whole weekend of all the things.
Do it.
If I'm not there, if it's on TV, I'm watching it. Gymnastics, softball. I'm very dedicated.
So is your husband an OU?
Oh, yes. No, he's not. He actually graduated from OSU. Well, it's fine because I'm the loudmouth and he's very even laid back, even killed. People joke and they were like, your dad would roll over in his grave if he knew you married a pope. I don't want to say he's not as passionate as me. He's just not as loud about it. I wear black or a neutral color. I don't wear orange. If it's Bedlam,
because no one looks good in orange.
Oh, they don't.
It's a terrible color.
It's terrible. But it works because we just have fun with it. And he's not as loud about it as I am. We have a Bedlam room in our house with OU and OSU memorabilia. Honestly, I would have never thought that would be something that I would be okay with because I'm so diehard. So my dad...
Something you guys did together.
It was. Yeah. And this is my necklace that he gave me when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And I've worn it ever since. I wear it on game days, always. Football for sure, and on the Friday before football. I'm a very superstitious person. This piece of jewelry is very important to me. That and my wedding ring, and then I have my OU class ring. That's my jewelry. Those are very important to me. One of the first memories I have of him going to OU games with him is he actually took me to OU Texas, which is mind-blowing to think. I would have been about 10 when he took me there. I mean, my niece is 10, and there's no way I would take her or any child to OU, Texas. Are
No.
you kidding me? I just
Yeah,
can't
like,
fathom why he
for
did that. But
favorite Barry Switzer quote, I mean, there are tons, but,
yeah, yeah.
you fans, for the most part, are very nice. Sometimes it ticks me off that they're too nice until it comes to Texas. And all bets are off.
Absolutely.
And as he said, you see 80-year-old women, gray haired women standing up in the end zone, flipping off Texas players and yelling obscenities
They were
even
even
I
doing it
wouldn't say.
at the basketball game.
Yes.
It felt like
It is a
it
level people don't understand.
you're exactly right. And I was ingrained in that with that as a child. Like, we don't like orange. If the team is orange, they're automatically out. It's funny because, like, I used to go to my grandma's house and my mom and dad would go to the game. And I wanted to go so bad. Like, I would beg my dad, like, let me go, let me go. I can understand now because I am him now. I'm not taking a child. I won't even watch a game in the presence of a child. I don't
No.
have time to mess with them. And I'm going to say things. I don't have time to teach or filter. Anyway, when he first took me, it was like a very big deal. Like, kind of like how you behave today determines on if you're ever allowed to go back. So I was like determined to be on my best behavior. I guess clearly I was. I survived. I kept going
Yeah.
back. Then he took me to Dallas. Here's another funny tidbit too. My first words were boo Dallas. I said boo Dallas. Boo Dallas. We did not like the Dallas Cowboys, and that made my mom mad. But I didn't say mom before I said boo Dallas. But it's kind of comical because what did my dad have against the Cowboys? I don't know. He didn't like Jerry Jones. When Barry Switzer was coaching, he would watch because he loved Barry Switzer, but it wasn't enough to convert him.
Yeah.
And
I want CD Lamb to do well.
oh,
But
absolutely. Oh, people, in this area, they're Dallas Cowboys fans. And so they don't understand, like, why are you not a Cowboys fan? I never have been. I support players. I watch all of our OU players wherever they go. I have a CD shirt. I have a Jalen shirt. We went to Philly and saw Jalen back in November. I went to Cleveland and saw Baker when he was there. I've been to Tampa Bay.
come to Kansas City. We
Yes,
are the house of OU
y'all
players.
have got so many.
And my Chiefs friends are really, I will tell you, outside of us, the fan base that is more invested in OU getting their act together in football are the Chiefs fans
I can
because
see
we're a
that.
pipeline. And they're like, no, you guys give us our O line. And
No,
I'm like,
that's
there
so
ain't
true.
no one coming on
Not
the
anytime
line.
soon. Not from
And
the
they're
line.
like, what?
I've never been to a Chiefs game, but I have been to Arrowhead several times back in the early 2000s when the Big 12 championship was there, which is very cold. I have a lot of memories of going to those games and
Yeah.
freezing my ass off. But
It's
I
even
told
colder
you,
right now.
oh, I
Yeah.
definitely would love to come. I actually have a Patrick Mahomes shirt too. I'm a big fan.
Do you have an NFL team or is it just the OU guys?
I don't. It's basically just the OU guys. So I loved Tom Brady since the early 2000s. I always said I was a Patriots fan all of those years just because of him. We went to Foxborough. I followed Tom for so long. I just kind of did what he did. Then since our OU pipeline has been so flourished in the NFL in the last decade or so,
Yeah.
I just follow those guys. I've been to Philly to see Jalen. I've been to see Baker several times. I've been trying to get out to see Kyler.
Yeah.
He's on my list for this fall, but it's hard to work between our OSU football schedule and our
Yeah,
OU
that's a
football
lot.
schedule. We got really lucky this last fall, and OU and OSU both had a bye week in November, and Philly played on a Thursday night. So I'm like, we're going.
That's great.
I just like to follow the OU guys for sure. And yeah, I
Yeah.
watch tons of NFL.
I'm glad you're not a Dallas fan. I wasn't
No,
either.
no.
People question. I've always been a Chiefs fan. Now, my parents did love the Cowboys because, like you said, growing up and we're
Yeah.
close, that was your
Mhm.
option. But my grandparents live more north Oklahoma. So every summer we
okay.
would come to Kansas and Missouri. They got me hooked on the Chiefs in the East, the Derek
Yeah.
Thomas days. So I'm not a come lately Chiefs fan. They wanted me to be a St. Louis Cardinals fan. Never adhered to that. I am Texas Rangers true and true.
Yes.
That's what my dad and I had together. I love the Chiefs forever. Okay.
Well,
You've been to a lot of venues. What is your, outside of Norman, what are your favorite college venues? Start there.
I gotta go with the Rose Bowl. It's an incredible venue, But is it not in the weirdest location?
It's the worst location. And apologies to LA. I know it's horrific.
Yes,
But my gosh, it's the worst location. It's so
it
hard
is.
to get to.
I agree
It
with that.
is, you park on a golf course. It's the
So weird.
traffic flow.
It was
Oh
not what I
God.
expected. I did not expect the Rose Bowl to be, like, in the middle of a neighborhood,
Right.
basically, like, it was so
Yeah.
weird. But it was really gorgeous. One place I've never been and will never go is Texas. Went to
It is.
BYU last fall when OU played, in Provo,
Mhm.
and that's a gorgeous stadium. Just the mountains. As far as college goes, those 2 stick out to me.
I'll say I've been to Philly twice in the past 2 years. I love the way
Oh,
they've set up their
I
sports
like
complex where
yes. I
everything
like
is
it
right there. I
too.
love
I
that.
like that was a really cool venue. I'm not a fan of AT&T Stadium. I've been there 100 times,
God, me
honestly.
neither.
I hate
Well, you
going
want to know
there.
my first time in there was with, speaking of BYU, was when Sam, we
Oh,
opened the stadium. OU
yes.
opened the
Mhm.
stadium in '09 and Sam broke his shoulder
Uh-huh.
basically.
It's been
And
cursed.
we've won games in there. We played
We
Big 12
have.
championships.
We want yeah.
I hate the place
Tampa
either.
Bay is a really cool stadium. They have a pirate ship up there, and that was a
Yeah.
really neat experience. When I went to Gillette, I will say I did not get to experience that stadium as much as I wanted at the Patriots game because it was pouring down rain and it was so cold. It was like miserable. The stadium itself is neat, but
So, as a Tom Brady fan, I have to ask, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts on him as a commentator?
It did not start out well. Maybe I'm being, like, optimistic. I feel like maybe he's gotten a little better as the season's gone on. Not a ton. I hope that he does get better because
Yeah, it's
it's
not
not
good.
that's what he's doing, so I don't wanna dog on him, but he's not my favorite, I will say that, and I hate that for him,
That's
but yeah.
reassuring to hear because
Yes.
people are like, you're so hard on him. I wrote about this. Nick Saban is the flipping standard. He
Oh
was
my god.
not good
Absolutely.
to start college game day. And I am amazed at the turnaround and growth he has made.
He
He's really flipping good.
he really has come a long way. I laughed so hard at him and Pat McAfee
Well, and
at the
I'm like,
beginning.
why
Oh
are
my
you
god.
subjecting yourself to this nonsense? You're the GOAT. You don't have
You're
to
Nick
do
Saban.
this.
What are
And
you
he's up
doing?
here taking his shirt off and jumping on chairs.
Oh, no.
What I have seen is like by last week, McAfee was sitting down listening to
Oh,
Saban.
as he should.
And he owns that stage. And I'm like, okay, he put himself out there and
He
he has
did.
obviously grown. I can do the
He
same
has.
thing with this podcast.
Look, I
Be
feel the
like Nick
same way.
Saban.
That goals, that's our goal is to
Goals.
be like Nick Saban.
Totally.
Especially
Is who are your current favorite U players? Any sport?
technically he just graduated, but Danny Stutzman, Jaron Kanek, as far as football goes, softball, I love Jada and Kinsey, those 2
Yeah,
girls.
it's gonna be hard.
Feel like they were there forever, but not in a bad way. Softball came so far and OU accomplished so much during their time there that I don't think we're ever gonna like forget them. As far as up and comers, one that's sticking out to me is Nellie McEnroe Marinas women's basketball. I've always liked Peyton Verhulst.
Mhm.
And, I like Lexi Keys because she
Yeah.
transferred from OSU, and she's
Yeah.
fun to watch anyway. I actually
Yes,
enjoyed
good.
watching her when she played for OSU, so I was happy to see her come from the dark side. Faith?
All time. Do you have an all time fave?
Well, I gotta go with Baker. I mean, he's literally
Do you
my
know
favorite.
why he doesn't get in my category? And it drives me nuts with this. I'm going to say this younger generation. He never won a national championship. You can't stand
Well,
on the
yeah,
board if you don't win a national
that is
championship.
that is a legit reason. I don't disagree with that. I've never met Baker.
When Baker was in school, my best friend and I were laughing about some Facebook memory popped up this week or something. And we were like, oh, this was back in the day where every Sunday at brunch, we had a table next to Baker because back in 2017, we both liked to party way too much.
I understand.
Baker is great. You talk about down to earth human.
Yes.
He is. I root for him. I think he's been greatly humbled in the NFL. Cleveland screwed him over, and I really want him
Oh,
to have long
I
term
know.
success.
I agree. I get what you're saying. I
But
don't
you know
disagree
what?
with that.
It wasn't all on him because
It
his head
wasn't.
coach made
Should
some
have.
pretty
They should have
bonehead
won that Rose Bowl.
decisions.
I'm
Game
not lying.
management.
That is one of those that still pains me
Me
because
too.
I feel like him and I have a lot in common because we're both a little like salty, sassy,
Yeah.
but we're
Yeah.
nice people. Like we're good,
Right.
nice, down to earth people, devoted OU. Like that guy's a Sooner through and through. You know, sometimes I'm not like the most self confident person. I don't necessarily like seeing myself on camera, and I almost was like, I'm not going to do a video like podcast. I'm just going to do audio. I'm not like a huge fan necessarily of hearing myself talk, but I would rather hear myself talk than see myself. I guess you just kind of get over that because you got to be seen, you know, and
Mhm.
people need to see you and recognize you. And when I met Chris Plank, it was because I just walked up to him. You've got to get your face out there. Just being willing to put yourself out there and go, I'm just going to go up and talk to this person because why not? What are they going
Why
to
not?
do? Even if they're rude or they think I'm crazy, who cares? I'll never see them again. There's a time and place. But if the time's right and you're there, I'm all about going up and talking to people. I guess if I want to go like an all time in my lifetime, to my knowledge, Sooner. I know he's not an athlete, but man, I do love Bob Stoops. I mean, I was there when he came to OU. I was, went to games during his tenure. I have a lot of respect for him and his family. If I had to pick maybe even just an all time favorite Sooner
Mhm.
in my lifetime, it would be Bob Stoops, just
Well,
because he's got the national championship. So check.
part of our problem this year, I say it was the first time in 25 years we didn't have a Stoops on the sideline in some
Yes,
capacity.
I actually said that we've had a Stoops name on the sideline in some capacity for 25 years.
We talked about superstitions. Now, this year, it wouldn't have mattered what I wore. I finally had to get over that. I have way too many clothes. I would wear the same dang shirt every week. As long
Oh,
as we won,
oh,
same earrings. Okay, we lost.
I'm
Throw
still
those
mad
away.
because my friend shut the blinds during that
Yes.
2017 Rose Bowl.
Yep.
Someone shut the blinds and it's their
Yes.
fault. It's very superstitious. It's funny because I don't travel during football season unless it's football related. I don't do vacations or,
Well,
like
yeah, no, you don't
we
do
don't do that.
anything.
No,
We
we don't
don't
do
do
that.
that. You don't
It's
have
football.
babies. You don't get
No, you don't.
married.
No, you don't.
No.
You don't. Really kind of gotten that way with softball. The only exception is we travel on Memorial Day weekend. Like we always go somewhere. And we're usually in St. Thomas. That's our favorite beach place. And so I have watched countless supers in St. Thomas on the beach. I try to keep close proximity to Oklahoma during my main sporting events because I don't do well. I don't like to watch with other people.
God, me
I
either.
don't.
I don't like to watch really any sports with other people. My dad was the coach and he was still coaching while my mom and I went to sports. After he retired, he had zero interest in going because
That's understandable.
he did not want to be around the armchair quarterbacks and people that do not know what the hell they're talking
Oh,
about.
it's so
And
hard.
I have reached that stage in my life. I'm really glad you're doing is giving a format for women to have voice in sports. And you've said maybe you don't know the X's and O's like some people do, but you clearly have mad passion. You know the ins and outs of all the players and all the sports, not just football. And that women need that place and space to
Absolutely.
speak up.
Absolutely. That's kind of what started my whole life motto that I would never go back to Stillwater back in my college days was a guy started picking on me, thinking that, oh, it's a girl. What does she know? We were coming off a national championship. So, of course, everybody's in the football scene. I guess he just thought I was along for the ride. I clearly was watching the game. I wasn't, having social hour because we don't do
Right.
that. Why can you not just respect that I'm another human being that's trying to enjoy the sporting event and maybe I know what I'm talking about? That's frustrating. Just because we're a girl doesn't mean we don't know what we're talking about. I'm not claiming that I could go out and run an offense. Now I can have a good time with it. I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily have the best game plan, but I might have some idea what to do. Obviously, there's more girls watching softball than football as a whole, I believe. Which is still fantastic because softball has come so far over the years. On my show I did yesterday, talking about how social media has, of course, pros and cons of social media. I know But the good thing about it and what I've always loved about is the connection, not even just with people and like the community, but your teams. You can follow all of your sports teams on Twitter is mainly my favorite. You get a lot more stuff on there. You can follow your teams on there even if you can't watch a game. If you really want to know what's going on with the team, the accessibility, like it's right here. I do like that because sports like softball, soccer, those sports that aren't broadcasted on ESPN on a daily basis, like you can still follow your team and care about them and know what's going on. And because of the power of social media, I think that's why I have a whole business based on social media, because there's good and bad with this, but I've always just chosen to focus on the good because of that connection and the community there, to find like who is the community you want to be around and where's those people like you. So you can find them. That's really an advantage for us girls and women going forward, not just as athletes, but just in general as a fan. If you love something as a girl, don't let it hold you back. Find that coach on Twitter or that group. You don't even have to interact if you don't want to. Just gather your information until you feel more confident in speaking up. I think it's an invaluable tool these days. It's right there in front of us. We just got to utilize it.
Where can people find your podcast?
I am at Sooner Girl Pod everywhere. Facebook,
Everywhere.
Twitter, Instagram, all the things. My podcast, Sooner Girl Sports Pod, is on Apple and Spotify and YouTube and Substack.
Awesome. And Substack.
And
That's
Substack.
right.
I want to try to build my Substack. I'm brand new to Substack. I got on Substack and created my profile, and it starts asking you all the questions like, are you an author, podcaster, whatever. I'm just here for my friend. Then I just saw all the features for podcasting and I thought, maybe I could do this. It seems like a simple like upload. I'm not super familiar with Substack.
My longing is to write.
Okay, yeah. You're good at it.
Thank you very much. I do want to write a book. I've told people I am feeling the way this book writing is going, much like I feel the way marathon running is going. I'm going to do one book, and then like I did one marathon, and then I'm going right on back to half marathons, and that means publishing essays.
Yes.
Because the actual vast difference of a lengthy event, whatever it is, composed to shorter, less taxing mental tolling things is different. Now, maybe once I finally get done, I'll get over the hump. I'm just approaching it of just do one. And
that's very understandable.
I do love to write. That is how I got going here. And then I realized if you want to be able to get people into your writing, the writing game has changed a lot, and the editing publicist game has changed a lot, and that you have to have a market, you have to have a following. If you're not going to self-publish, you have to have the backing. So I had to get into podcasting, which has been a huge step out for me to put it out there so that I get people to know, I like this story, or I like what she's saying. Let me go read this book. Let me go read the Substack.
That makes sense. I mean, that makes complete sense. I'm a talker. When I told people I was starting a podcast, they were like, why haven't you done this before? I was like, I don't know.
One other thing on Substack, I've been on there for 2 years, just kind of dabbling in the writing side. In the last 3 months, the features have caught up to other social media platforms. Now, writers don't like it, but when we're going in this media war kind of thing that's going on, we're seeing a mass influx. There's already a TikTok stream started for TikTokers to come over. There's now live video features.
Yes.
A lot of different avenues outside of just publishing an essay. So you don't have to be a writer. You can be a talker. You can be a podcaster. You can do short newsletters. You can use daily notes. There are a vast number of features. I don't want to have a Facebook group because I feel like Substack gives every avenue to interact. You can go live, you can do chats, you can do notes, so you can interact with people the same way. I feel like Substack needs to give me some endorsement fees or something for all the publicity I've been doing for them lately, but I really do believe in the platform given the current state of social media. I'm sure true podcasters would roll their eyes, but I'm like, this is what I'm
Well,
doing, and it's
it's what
easy.
I'm doing too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just makes it easy. I'm already on Substack
Mhm.
and I'm trying to figure it out. I kind of accidentally stumbled upon all the things. And then I thought, well, if it's all right here, I may as well check into it. I didn't realize how easy it was going to be to even get to this point. I mean, easy, but hard.
No, it speaks to the point of you just have to jump in and start doing it.
And
You
that's
have
pretty
to
much what I
start
did.
doing it.
That's pretty much
Whatever.
what. Then he said, once you decide you're going to do something, like I'm all in. I'm
Yeah,
either 100% in or I'm not in at all. I don't half-ass anything.
me
It's
either.
all or nothing. I was just like, well, we're doing this thing. I'm gonna do the
Mhm.
damn thing and
Yes.
get in and just figure it out.
Your listeners will respect and appreciate
I
that
think
way more.
so.
I've
I
had
do.
many people reach out and say, I've wanted to do whatever it is.
Yeah.
Thank you for being vulnerable and not
Yes.
showing the perfect version, which as a recovering perfectionist is
Yes.
extremely difficult. I mean, this is the
Yes.
most difficult, challenging thing for me to put out. It's not half-ass. I mean, I am full in trying.
Right.
I just don't have a full grasp of
It's
what
just
works and what
a
doesn't work
learning
yet.
curve. Yeah.
But do it, and you're going to get the true, authentic clientele and listeners
Yes.
that you want.
People that know me personally, they know how I am. I kind of no BS kind of person. You see what you get what you see kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm all in. No one's really shocked. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily like to be vulnerable to people that I'm not comfortable with. Putting my face, my videos, and all that out there on a public page for all to see and hear is weird to think about it. Then I'm just like, well, you got to do it if this is what you're
Right.
going to do. It's a new adventure.
You're being brave and doing it and following your passion is
Yeah.
so admirable. And I think you're an example to people to follow.
Well,
So,
thank you. I mean, I feel the same way about you when I was listening to that episode with Meg. How many people in our age group deal with insecurities where they don't know what to do or how they're supposed to feel with themselves? We don't have kids. We're not moms and we don't have that role. Sometimes finding your identity outside of that, it just goes against culture, I guess. Everybody around us, mainly that's our age, they're doing the mom thing. I'm just doing my own thing, going against the grain. I'm not one to like follow the masses. I'm just like, I'm not doing that. I'm doing what I want to do. I've always kind of been that way. I've gotten louder about it
Mhm.
as I've gotten older, which I think just comes with age. I think how many people in our age group really want to be that way and they're scared to, or they don't know how
exactly.
to, or they feel like they're supposed to fit in their mom mold. Like, I don't have a mold. I'm
Yeah.
just here.
And that mold can change over
Oh,
time.
for sure.
I'm a little bit older than you, as now my friends that had kids and their kids are graduating and going off,
Yes.
they really are in this, now what do I do? I've always said people need to ask themselves the really hard questions. I understand there are many people that struggle to have kids that wanted to have kids. I never wanted to have kids. And as someone that was in public education for a very long time, I saw a whole lot of people that needed to ask themselves if they should have had kids because they
Absolutely.
had kids, they were not parenting. Yeah. And it
Absolutely.
is a full time job. It requires a lot of patience, work, and dedication
It's your
that
life.
it's your life and you have to decide, is this the life I want? It was not for me. It's not that I don't love kids. I love
Mhm.
them from 7th grade on, and you hand them over to me and we'll do great things.
We actually tried to have kids. We got married in 2007. He's actually younger than me. We waited a few years and started trying to have kids, and it just didn't work out. Looking back, I'm glad that it didn't. I know that sounds bad because it was a struggle at the time. It was taxing. It got to a point where I just thought, why are we doing this? Like, how far are you willing to go? And then, like you said, like, do you really want this, or is it just something you feel like you're supposed to do? Once you start actually thinking about that, you're like, I don't have to do what I don't want to do. I can still have a very happy functioning life without kids. My struggle was I felt like I was robbing my husband of being a dad because I thought he would be a great dad. I don't want to take that from him. But I had to get over that. I just had to believe him when he said, it's okay. I just had to trust that he was telling me the truth and being honest with himself and go from
Right.
there. Here we are now, 13 years nearly removed from that. And I'm not sad that we don't have kids because we travel. We have a dog. We can pretty much do whatever we want. I love other people's kids. I have biological nieces and nephews. I was actually in public education as well, but only for a few years, not as long as you. My degree's in early childhood. I always said I can handle them until they're about 10 or 11, and then
Yeah,
I'm
we're the
shipping them.
opposite. I don't want the little ones. No,
So,
thank you.
but even the little ones are taxing.
Yeah.
It's just completely different worlds. I have no regrets about that.
There isn't that
Absolutely.
longing for me.
When I became self-employed and started working from home,
Mhm.
a lot of people are like, "Oh, she works from home now. She can keep my kid." I'm like, "I'm still working. In fact, I'm
Yes.
working harder. I'm trying to build a business."
Like,
I finally just got to the point where I'm like, if people think I sit in my robe all day and watch Housewives, let them think it. It's really none of their business or mine what they think of me. Like, these are the choices that I made in my life. And if you think that my working from home is not actually working, I don't care.
for me, especially, I'm a people pleaser. Getting to that, what other people think of me is none of my business. And I just have to repeat,
It's gotten
repeat, repeat
easier.
it.
Like, in the last decade, for sure, I've just been I don't care. Honestly, that came in handy for me, even doing this podcast, because I thought, what if no one listens? What if people think I'm dumb? And then I thought, who cares? If I'm enjoying it and if it's like therapy for me, if I'm having a good time, who cares? No one's making anyone listen. Just
Yeah.
do you. It's
Just
gotten
do
easier
it
over the
and do
years.
you. Agree.
But-
What are you looking for
Oh,
in guests? Probably
oh,
not me because I'm firing everyone. So,
well, that's okay because I also have those dates. You can email me or message me on any social media if you're interested in being a guest and tell me why you think you would be a good one. My email, it's soonergirlsportspod@gmail.com. I'm looking for women who are equally as passionate as myself in OU sports, whether it's a former athlete or coach or just a fanatic, somebody who grew up learning about OU sports and being taught sooner born, sooner bred. But another good person I would love to hear from is like, what made you an OU fan?
Mhm.
If you used to be like a fan of a different school or didn't know anything or whatever, like what made you an OU fan? I just think it's important for us girls to stick together and speak out
Absolutely.
and stand up with each other. So I'd love to hear someone else's story. And I love what you're doing on your show. Women in our age group, we need to have the audacity to take up
Yeah,
space, to have the
absolutely.
audacity to have a voice. This is who I am and what I am and what I do. And if you don't like it, then go somewhere else because there's a space for you too. It's just
Right.
not here. Here's a space for you. Let's go
Yeah.
there. There's a space for you, whoever you are, whatever you are, and wherever you are. And I always tell my little niece, it's not a bad thing to be called weird. If somebody thinks that you're weird, like just own it and go on. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
If you think I'm weird, you do you, wherever your space is. I think that's hard though for younger people and for people that are insecure to be weird because it's hard to be weird. But that's why it's important, especially like women at our age. It's like a pivotal time in our life. And it's just a great time for us to be like, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And you just own it and go
Yeah.
with it. And I think that's important.
The space isn't there. You create it.
Make the space.
Make
I
the
had
space.
so many people say to me when I told them I was starting a podcast, why haven't you done this sooner? Like, this is what you do.
Mm.
Just finding your space and going, here I am.
Yeah,
I'm going to sit here and
same.
talk about sports. I
Like,
do feel like, why haven't I done this sooner? I don't want to say I'm confident in myself because I definitely still have my insecurities, but I just am who I am. What other people do or don't do does not faze me in the least bit. I don't care. Like, I love you. You go do you, but I'm going to go over here and watch my sporting event. I have a shirt that says, I can't come. There's sports.
right.
And there's really no greater statement. I'm going to watch all the sports.
People are lonely and people are
They are.
craving and seeking a place to belong. I know a lot about sports. I don't want to talk about it. It kind of, for me, blurs the line of that's my release. That
Totally
is my outlet
I totally
where I can
understand
just turn it off. I don't
Mhm.
want to make a profession out of it,
I get
but
that.
there's a space for everyone. And so create it
Absolutely.
because there are people needing it and
Well,
seeking
and
it.
I love nothing more than that camaraderie. Like when you travel to like an away game, I'm like, I can create that community to
You
have
can.
every day in a certain space. That's kind of my goal, that camaraderie of there's another girl who will get it. I know a lot of girls who are fans who enjoy sports, but they're not like on the level of crazy that I am, to find somebody that's like in that space with you and you're like, okay, come here. Let's
Yeah.
do this together here. I've had a lot of support so far from other women. I'm very thankful, even from some guy friends of mine who have shared it. It's really nice to see that support and that camaraderie. That's really cool to see.
I'm
Yeah.
so excited for
Thank
you,
you.
and I'm
Thank you.
excited to see what comes from it and for you also to sprout and grow more committed OU fans. We need
Oh,
to get the
yes.
passion going.
I will say my niece is 10. I took her to a women's basketball game a couple of weeks ago, and she recently started playing basketball. She loves it. She's learning the rules and everything, and she's really obsessed with it right now. Caitlin Clark has really pulled that along, which is
Yes.
fantastic. My little niece. I was teaching her the whole way up there. I was teaching her how to do horns down because it was women against Texas. And I was explaining to her, like, anytime OU plays Texas, like, this is what we do and this is why we do it. She would practice and she was so excited to like learn all the things. It's cool, like, since I don't have my own kids, to impart that love and wisdom onto somebody else. I'm like training her to have that love and passion. It's a lot of fun
Yeah.
to be a part of because I like to have somebody to share that with.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I
I'm
enjoyed it
really
so much.
excited to see where your podcast goes.
I think we've both got really good, unique spaces for women to come be a part of, and men too.
And I hate niche, and I don't
Yeah.
follow a niche or a box, but I've had men recently that have responded to me. They're like, I'm in my
Okay.
midlife catalyst era. I'm having my
Yeah.
midlife catalyst moment. And I'm like, absolutely. It's
Well, and
not
I don't
just
I don't
women
mean to.
focused. You can have more authentic
Yes, I do
connections
too.
and create the space where women they
Mhm.
feel
Yeah.
safe that you're not going to mansplain or gloss
Yeah.
over, that you can explain what's going on. I am grateful to Larissa for joining us today and sharing her excitement that she is building around Sooner Girl Sports Pod. She can be found across all streaming apps as well as on Substack. I'm excited to give her a listen and see where her community goes. In reflecting on today's episode, what is it that you're passionate about that you could find a community to join, or that maybe community is lacking and you could initiate connections with others around that similar passion and interest? Where is it that you need to show up in the world and take up space? What are the things calling to you that you long to do, but you haven't put yourself in the arena? What is it that you need to do to be you and quiet that voice inside of you saying you should do this? What's stopping you? Just do it. Put yourself out there, show up, take the first steps, and don't listen or think about what anyone else thinks about you. Those are really hard lessons to learn and obstacles to overcome. But if you want to reach your true passion, your true purpose, if you want to find what gets you out of bed in the morning and keeps you up late at night, you have to reflect on those questions. You have to pursue the answers and you have to follow your vision and your dreams. Don't leave it to someone else to do. Write your own story. Thank you for joining Midlife Catalyst, a place where ordinary people share extraordinary stories.